and very excited to be doing another Animal Speak. To start off this evening, I'm going to play some sacred music as usual, the handpan, followed by a guided meditation. You find yourself walking along a country road. Walking along a country road, enjoying the warm sun, freshness of the country air, the expansiveness of the sky overhead. This outdoor space around you gives you a light an expansive feeling in your heart. And this country path you're walking along runs alongside a forest. And in the forest you can hear the sounds of birds. And the bird song adds to your sense of joy and openness. You decide to step off the country path and enter into the forest. There's no clear path to follow, but you make your way among the trees. There are lots of beautiful trees in this forest. Lots of trees surrounding you. And you see an especially welcoming looking tree. Just the right size for you to wrap your arms around. So you stop for a while to do some tree hugging. You press your heart and chest against the tree. And in fact, try to make as much body contact as possible with the tree. You can feel the exchange of energy. The tree taking away stuck energies and giving you back fresh life force, just as it takes your carbon dioxide and gives you back oxygen. Feels like the exchange is mutually satisfying for both you and the tree. While in the embrace, you close your eyes and just listen to the birds of the forest. Tuning into each different sound. The bird sounds feel activating and even cleansing to you. The sounds are of such a high frequency and seem so pure to you. And when it feels like the energy exchange with the tree is finished, you let go of the tree, pat it with your hand, and thank it for the special moment. And you continue to wander the forest, enjoying all the shades of green, the light shining down through the canopy, and the ongoing sound of birdsong. Then you see the silhouette of something on a branch. As you get closer, you see it's a bird. You slowly approach so as to not disturb it. The bird doesn't move. It seems quite comfortable where it's perched. And it seems quite comfortable with you coming closer. In fact, it almost feels like it has been expecting you. As you get closer, you look up at the bird, and it looks back down at you. The bird just sitting there silently, So you decide to sit on the ground beneath the tree and be silent with the bird. Just the two of you looking at each other. It's not an uncomfortable silence at all. In fact, it feels quite pleasant. And there's still the sound of other birds in the background that the two of you can just sit and enjoy together. Then the bird rustles its feathers a little bit and begins to open its beak. And this seems to last an eon, because you're very curious what kind of sound will come out of this bird. And then you realize what a special and unusual bird this is, as it actually begins speaking to you. It begins speaking to you about special things, things you realize you need to hear, things meant for you. And so in silence, you listen to what the bird has to say and tell you. With amazement, you're taking in everything the bird is saying and showing you. You receive what the bird has had to say and show you. This is not something you'll want to forget. And then with the last words, the bird closes its beak in a manner as if to say, that is all, at least for now. You nod to the bird to thank you, not wanting to speak, not wanting to fill the space with a human voice. And the bird nods back in return and hops 2 or 3 times down the branch before flying off into the forest canopy. You need a moment to absorb what just happened, so you sit there silently. The trees and bird song still surrounding you. And then it's time for you to get up and begin heading in the direction you came. Walking back through the forest, amongst the trees. You pass the hugging tree and give it another pat, feeling once more the connection you established during the hug. And as you pass among all the trees, you come to the way that you entered into the forest, the edge of the forest, next to the country path. And you step out of the forest, back onto the country path, and follow it winding back in the direction you came from. But now all the wiser for what the bird took the time to share with you. And you start to feel yourself slowly coming back to the outer senses, the outer realm, connecting again to your breath, letting each breath bring you more into your senses and outer awareness. Awareness of the room you are sitting in right now, where you are sitting right now. Coming back with a feeling of gratitude for this inner adventure and all you received from the bird. And when your eyes are open, you can take a couple of minutes to draw, journal what you receive from the bird, to record this message, this important message, just for you. I could show what I got. It's basically the image of the bird in the tree, but what came was that song about the kookaburra. The kookaburra bird who sits up high in the tree, and just really to live above the world. A good message for me to hear at this time with so much going on in the world and getting involved, getting caught up in a lot of the drama sometimes, and even the busyness of my own life, to remember to live above the world like the kookaburra bird high up in the tree, because there seems to be lots that just wants to bring us down to earth. The gravity of humanity and human existence can really pull us down and make us feel, not like a bird that wants to fly, not like an eagle, not like a kookaburra that can soar above these things. So need to stay connected to that sense of levity above the human drama of things. So that felt good. That felt good to hear that. There's also the practice we did last week, which was one of the Animal Speak assignments, was to draw stick figures of animals in the spirit of cave drawings of the ancients, and to explore the presence of geometric shapes in animals' forms, such as the straight lines, the curved lines, the angles, the geometric forms, such as the triangulation of a hind leg or the roundness of the head. We know that geometry is not of this plane of existence. It actually is on another plane, but we see hints of it in our realm of nature, in nature's design language. And doing that exercise, and we'll be doing more drawing of animals, so the reason I'm pointing to this is so that we can recognize that animal forms are backed by the architecture of geometry, but brought into a living form, into the living beingness of an animal. That an animal is bringing something from a higher plane of existence into its livingness on this plane of existence. Kind of reminds me of a quote from Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, who said that architecture is frozen music. Architecture in a building is frozen music. And animals, in a way, are a liberation of archetypes. They are taking the geometry of another plane and liberating it into livingness. And we talked a little bit about the reasons that the ancients worked with these cave drawings, and I wanted to touch on that a bit again just to unpack that further. Because there's speculation around these things by archaeological studies, just as there's lots of speculation by Egyptologists as to what the pyramids of Egypt are for. Sometimes not just speculation, but dogmatization, making some sort of official position in Egypt as to what these pyramids are, as if there needs to be some sort of official position, which is, currently is that they are tombs of pharaohs. But what if these official speculations and dogmatizations are wrong? Then we have dogmatized error and are often handing the public an erroneous thought to hold in the head. This is my concern, is that we dogmatize things and we end up holding erroneous thoughts, pictures in our heads. And that's a problem, especially when these ideas become hardened as a settled science and get entrenched into our way of thinking and seeing things, and then get passed on from one generation to another, and then become part of a state-sanctioned educational curriculum. We're actually propagating misinformation, hurting and limiting each subsequent generation. And the core of this problem in education is that we're telling people what to think rather than how to think. Telling people what to think rather than how to think. And this includes things like Darwin's theory of evolution, which has become pretty much entrenched in our thinking the way it is taught in our schools as settled science. And this is something we'll be addressing as we continue to unpack the idea of spiritual evolution as described by Rudolf Steiner. And one problem is that modern science, which is really just the new kid on the block these past few hundred years, and typical of any burgeoning young ego, thinks it has all the answers and is in just a bit too much of a hurry to prove everybody else wrong, and that it is right, it knows what's right. And in doing this, it's sweeping away centuries of ancient practices and mystery wisdom. And this is a real problem for our times. And as I keep saying, what modern science is presenting and the way it is presenting is one of the leading causes of mental illness. What modern science is presenting and the way it is presenting it is one of the leading causes of mental illness. Often it's just facts, facts, facts. What do you get? It can get you all fact up. Our modern education is so left brain in this way that it's out of balance, and it's throwing humans out of balance, which will make people sick. And furthermore, another thing I've been saying over the past decade is that the greatest casualty of the modern scientific age is the image and identity of the human being. The greatest casualty of the modern scientific age is the image and identity of the human being. The human has been reduced to dust. Quite literally. The human has lost its position as a significant spiritual entity in the cosmos and a descendant of the divine nature of reality, and has been reduced to dust, to carbon. That's it. And we're living a life on a disconnected planet that has no meaning. Itself is just a tiny speck of dust in a dusty universe that will end with an equally meaningless implosion. And we don't have to agree with this view. And I'm very happy to say that I don't. And this is because I don't sweep away the spiritual wisdom of the past, which is our collective heritage to feed from. And we can maintain this collective heritage of the past to inspire the imagination, all the while exploring the physical aspects of the universe, but along with the inner aspects that are spoken of through the ancient stories, the ancient imagery, and so forth, that is so necessary to stay connected to. The inner aspects have always been there, and they will always remain there to be explored, regardless of what takes place in the temporal, externalized, physical realm of things. Which is why I hope you will see that spiritual science is a remedy to this imbalance, causing illness, mental illness, and ultimately physical illness to us individually and as a planet. And that it can help restore wholeness through a holistic approach and perspective. And I hope you can appreciate this Empathy with Nature series. The intention is largely on how to think, how to use our greater capacities of being, integrating scientific clarity and precision of thought, along with a neo-shamanistic spiritual approach, our spiritual capacities that are somewhat dormant and awaiting to be awakened. We can bring the precision and detailed-oriented left brain capacities into a balanced working relationship with the holistic and intuitive capacities of the right brain. This is our destiny. This is part of not only our evolution, but our spiritual evolution. This is our work, and this is what we're working at here. So, back to the cave drawings and the mind in the cave that we looked at last time. The right brain shamanistic mind that was in fact somewhat of a shared mind. Consciousness of that time was a shared mind because the human psyche had not individuated, as Jung calls it, individuation of the soul into souls. It had not individuated to the degree that it has today. We can see that happening, where we've become much more individual selves, or you could say selves, individual cells in a spiritual body, rather than merge together in more of a group soul or folk soul, similar to how animal species group into souls and function in a oneness in that way, which we'll be looking at a bit more tonight. And further, not everybody had to be working as a shaman within the older shamanistic societies. Not everyone had that role as the one who worked directly with the medicines, with the spirits, accessing the guidance of the gods. But what the appointed shaman did in the work was done for all. It benefited all, it fed all. Just like the person who ground the grain. Didn't just do it for themselves, but did it for all. But this shamanistic mind had a twofold purpose. It simultaneously served the survival needs and the spiritual connection of the primitive human. And ironically, the spiritual connection allowed it connection with the animali soul realm, the animals, which in turn supported their survival needs. So what I'm saying is that having that shamanistic or neo-shamanistic capacity was to serve their survival needs, but also spiritual connection. And they needed spiritual connection to help with their survival. The point being is that we need spiritual connection today, still, for our own survival, and not just trying to figure things out technologically, technological solutions to this, that, and the everything else. That's not going to work. We still need to be guided by the greater wisdom inherent in the planet itself. So spiritual connection does ensure survival. And so we need to be maintaining that along with our growing scientific mindset. So to be clear, the animal cave drawings aren't just indicating the use of sympathetic magic in preparation for the hunt, but it's inclusive of that, but also points to the tremendously intimate relationship that animals and humans have, which we'll deepen and unpack as we develop this perspective of spiritual evolution in contrast to just a physical evolution. And I'll follow up on the bombshell statement I made at the end of the previous session, where I made the statement, contrary to popular belief. Just because it's popular belief doesn't mean that's right, could quite possibly be wrong, is thinking that the human evolved out of animals. But rather the opposite may be the actual case, that animals came out of the human. It is the human in its evolution that gave rise to all these other forms, these other expressions of life forms, animali forms, are a product of the human's spiritual evolution. And I'm intentionally leaving this as enigmatic so as to engage your thinking, engage your imagination, and the details will be filled in gradually as we go. And I also want to say this is not about entering into the age-old debate between creationists and evolutionists, or promoting the ideas of intelligent design people. This is a thing out there, intelligent design, which I'm not familiar with, just remotely heard of it, but rather this is to bring forward a unique perspective from the work of Rudolf Steiner known as Anthroposophy. And anthroposophy means the wisdom of the earth, or more specifically, the wisdom of the human being. Anthro and Sophie, human and wisdom. And part of what this body of work does is to reestablish the purpose of the human being in the universe. This is a big question that is unanswered by science. Science can tell us how things work, but can't say much about why. These sorts of things were traditionally dealt with by the religious sector of society. But of course, much of that has become disregarded by the modern mind. That religion and the ideas there really don't hold any water. But the work in anthroposophy is based on a new clairvoyance, a new spiritual seeing, or you could say the neo-shamanism combined with our new science, bringing the two into balance, so we can have a more truthful and balanced perspective of what we are, how we got here, and where we might be going. And so the insights of Dr. Steiner are based on his seeing, his initiated clairvoyance, his spiritual insights. But his insights are never to be presented in a way that should be taken on faith, as with a religious belief. No, because as he shared his own clairvoyant insights and reading of the Akashic record of the Earth's history, he also shared the path of personal spiritual development where any human who wants to can develop their own capacities for spiritual seeing in order to be able to see for themselves, know for themselves, a larger reality than what is accessible strictly by the five senses alone. And so what is presented here of anthroposophy is something you can gain ever greater clarity from your own experience and never needs to be taken dogmatically. When it comes to science, the cognitive approach is that of doubt and debate. Doubt and debate is the way science functions. I saw a meme online recently where it said the words, "Trust the science," is the most unscientific words you could ever say. Trust the science is the most unscientific words you could ever say. This is because the modus operandi of science is to doubt everything. And having a healthy skepticism is an important cognitive capacity to acquire. On the other hand, having faith is something more associated with religion and spirituality, but is sometimes equated with a blind faith in someone else's dogma. But this negative characterization of faith is limiting because it is actually another capacity we have and can exercise, faith. But we won't exercise faith if we're unaware we have its potential as a power. Faith is one of our latent spiritual powers. The Bible refers to faith as a power. It is something a shaman is exercising while bridging between the seen and unseen worlds, while holding the bridge for others between the two worlds. So faith is not a passive mental assenting to something, such as saying, I have faith there is a God, or I have faith there is life after death. That's more of a passive mental assenting to something. But the power of faith is what bridges the divide between the seen and unseen worlds, between the material plane and the other planes of existence. We need to exercise the power of faith in our spiritual work just as we need to exercise the power of doubt in our scientific work. And the two need to work hand in hand to have a safe and sound spiritual science. You might be wondering if the inner journeys we are doing at the beginning of each session are actually connecting to something beyond this realm. Or are we just bouncing around in a bubble of imagination? I would say these inner journeys are an exercise of faith, the true meaning of the word faith. To reach over to somewhere beyond the usual confines of the mind, the discursive mind, with a spiritualized use of the imagination to access something from beyond. That is at least the intention of these journeys, to increasingly utilize these capacities to extend ourselves beyond the day-to-day mind to a larger reality, to experience it and to bring it in to this reality, to transform this reality by doing so. Sometimes we have faith in things we don't see, at least not at first, yet we can feel them. And so the exercising of the power of faith can lead to accessing important spiritual connections, as the shaman did with the animals through the cave drawings. And this is something the planet is very much in need of, along with our profound advances in science. And so the faith of our spirit and the doubt and skepticism of our scientific mind are something that can work very well together. And nowhere is this intersection of science and spirituality seen so clearly as in one of the hottest topics of this time. That is the intelligence of the universe. Is the universe intelligent? Is there intelligence in the universe? To that I invoke the duh hypothesis. Is there intelligence in the universe? Duh! You're looking at it. That answer was easy. Go look in the mirror. Look around. There is all sorts of intelligence at work. Where did this intelligence come from? Again, duh! The universe. All this intelligence is being produced by the universe. The universe is producing intelligence. And so yes, there is intelligence in the universe. The universe is intelligence. And I'll refer to an important book in this field of research, The Intelligence of the Cosmos by Ervin Laszlo, which came out in 2017, not that long ago, with a foreword by Jane Goodall. People want to know if the universe is conscious. This is, of course, a question science struggles with. It's not one which the a shaman would struggle with, but science would like to explain where consciousness comes from. How have walking, talking conscious beings arisen out of inanimate matter? Arisen through the ranks of lower animals to become a higher life form? And furthermore, where is it all going? When science looks out at the universe, it is mystified as to where consciousness may lay. In the reductionist approach, scientists have tried to find its source in the body. Descartes and others searching the brain for the center of intelligence. Where is the seat of the soul, etc. And the search continues, probing deeper and deeper into the gray matter of the brain. The reason it eludes science, at least modern day physical science, is because science is very specialized at looking at the external shell of things. The external shell of things. It looks at the body, the outer form, the container of consciousness. A zoologist can study the body of an animal. It can dissect all the parts and see how they work, but this reveals nothing about where the instincts of an animal arise from. Its temperament, the senses that guide it while alive. This is separate from its body and comes from the inner reality, the inner nature of the being of the animal. The body is a carriage for the consciousness of the animal. Consciousness is an inside job. This has always been the experience of shamanism. The shaman who is able to connect deeply with the consciousness, the animale of an animal through cave drawings and other means. But there's also something of a paradox here too, because the physical form of an animal is designed to carry the intelligence of consciousness in a particular way. It has a specific design to carry intelligence in a particular way. So in fact, our intelligence is threefold. And this is something I unpacked in detail in the series Thinking Like a Plant, looking at the human as an upside down plant, where we have the intelligence of the head, the intelligence of the heart, and the gut intelligence, a threefold intelligence working together. Or on the animale soul level, the thinking, the feeling, and the willing that can be seen in both a human and an animal. So in other words, the three externalized parts of the physical body, the head area, the middle area, and the lower pole, are really external interfaces for something that is taking place internally. The internal reality, the internal nature of being. The carriage of the physical body acts as an interface between the inner and the outer, or the two different domains of the scientific realm and the spiritual shamanistic realm. The body in its threefoldness is an interface. So the source of consciousness will never be found in the outer shell of the world. And I'll just refer you to another book, quite a hefty tome here, that really unpacks this threefold morphology. This was written by Johann Rowan, inspired by the work of Rudolf Steiner, who broke down in detail this threefoldness. It's called Functional Morphology, the Dynamic Wholeness of the Human Organism, where this threefoldness that we share with animals and also with plants is really an important key to understanding the way things work and why things manifest in a certain way, as we'll see as we dig deeper into the animal world. So to deepen our understanding of this, we want to see more of how this threefoldness is played out in nature. We saw how a plant is threefold, and a human is also threefold, as an upside down plant, with our roots here, and our limbs down here, and our leaves here in the lung and heart area. This threefoldness is also played out in the animal world. But birds, the theme of this evening, in particular, are mostly head. Head. This is the dominant principle of the bird. This is their specialty and propensity. If you were to strip a bird of its feathers, we would see how slight the body can be. Their body doesn't need to house much of a digestive system because birds don't spend much time digesting what they consume. Food passes through very quickly. And their feet are very light and minimal. So birds are streamlined as much as possible for flight. So a bird's torso is not the predominant feature. It is the head that dominates their anatomy. If we look for the corresponding characteristic of the bird in the human anatomy, we see the head. And not only that, the wings are really an extension of this headness. And I'll give you an interesting quote from Rudolf Steiner regarding this. When we progress from the physical to the astral level, something of a paradox arises. On the physical plane, those powers cause feathers to develop. On the astral plane, they give rise to thoughts. Feathers are given to the eagle. That is the physical aspect of the process in which thoughts are formed. The thoughts given to human beings are the astral aspect of the development of feathers. Steiner is telling us that bird feathers on the physical plane are the correlate to human thoughts on the astral plane, the plane of consciousness and thought activity, the astral plane. Feathers stream from a bird's body, the way thoughts stream from our human head. So the realm of birds are representative of head intelligence, of the threefold intelligence. It's representative of the head intelligence as found in the human being. And the activity of the wings are a direct expression of that human intelligence. This is starting to give us some clues as to how spiritual evolution works. That while the human has been in the process of a spiritual evolution to activate the capacity for consciousness and needing to develop a carriage for consciousness, that birds emerged, the form of birds emerged and manifest using the same powers that we use for thought. Those powers got channeled into the development of the bird as a head being with its feathers as a form of intelligent activity, allowing it to fly in the sky just as our thought life, you could say, fly in the astral world. There's a mouthful. I think just let you chew on that. This becomes all the more astounding when we see how a flock of birds can move in flight, needing just half a second to change direction in flight. I'm sure you've all seen this. Flock of 10, 20, or hundreds of birds flying together in close proximity and in a fraction of a second all changing direction, showing this thought activity where the group soul of the birds are working together in a coordinated thought activity, not thinking the way a human does that, oh, we're going to turn to the left right now and go up. No, it's all being done through the feathers, through the wings, as an expression of thought activity as a human experiences it. Astral plane and the airy plane. So, yes, the flocks of birds have this innate ability to co-carry thought life and express it physically with such precision that they're not flying into each other. This is all very instinctual in birds, and comes from our interactivity, the interactivity of the animale, but they're producing it in physical form. And birds have this specialized form to be able to play this out. You wouldn't have this happening with hippos. At least I hope not. I'm going to do a little share screen here to look at some birds. Just admire the articulation of those feathers in the wing and the nuance that bird must experience, moving its wings, opening them up, tilting them, closing them, and how they really come from this head apparatus. There's not much else to this bird than the head and the feathers. We have a lovely shot of an owl. Again, the many different nuances in the feathers at the end here along the bottom side of the wing. The tail feathers, I'm sure, are guiding. And it's all added to with the beautiful coloration. Of course, the coloration wouldn't add much to the functionality of flight, but it points to an important thing about nature, is that it's not all just about survival. Consciousness is not just about survival. There's a certain element of style. involved in creation. We're talking about infinite creativity and artistry being worked out in physical form. So we have shape, but there's also color when it comes to nature's design language. This is a sandpiper. You can see how light this bird must be, how light the feathers are, that the light of the sun shines through the feathers. Not much to them, but it gives them the perfect balance and capacity for flight in the air, just as our thoughts can really transcend the realms of thought, the astral planes, the Animali soul realm. Just as birds show us. Just as the kookaburra bird sitting high in the tree can live above the world and not be pulled down. Now we're getting into a flock of geese. The group thought, the group soul. There's no leader, they take turns. Moving their thought life around together. Here's an incredible picture of hundreds of birds thinking together. Thinking, feeling their way in space. Probably just as Plato said, for no other reason than it just feels so good. Be so good to see humans functioning more like this. Another one, filling the sky with this presence. And I bet there wouldn't be one bird fall out of the sky from that. It's a group mind. It is a spiritual connection they have. It's non-physical. So I'll give you another quote from Rudolf Steiner on the subject. We look around us and feel what an immense degree nature is related to us. We see the world of thoughts in the flying birds. The human is a microcosm and contains within itself the secrets of the macrocosm. It is indeed true that the things we perceive inwardly, our thoughts, feelings, will impulses, can be found in the realm of nature. Human as a microcosm of the macrocosm, and the things we perceive inwardly are also expressed outwardly in the realm of nature. That is a big key. This quote is dripping with mystery and enticement to look at the things of nature as revelations of the cosmos. And here he points specifically to the threefoldness of our inner nature, our thoughts, our feelings, and our will impulses, as to be found in outer nature. Earlier, we asked the question, is there intelligence in the universe? To which I responded, duh! Now we might also want to ask, does the universe have thinking, feeling, and a will impulse? Is the answer again, Duh! We have made a step down that road to connecting with the consciousness of the cosmos and seeing how thought life is expressed physically in the realm of birds, with special attention to the wings and feathers of birds. These head beings whose feathers stream from their head and out their wings so they can navigate the nuances of the air with mastery. They are the downward physical evolution of the human being, who is ultimately seeking an upward spiritual evolution and mastery of free will thought on the astral plane. These head beings whose feathers stream from their head and out their wings so they can navigate the nuances of the air with mastery are the downward physical evolution of the human being, who is ultimately seeking an upward spiritual evolution and mastery of free will thought on the astral plane. In other words, while the human being has been going through a spiritual evolution, this gave rise to the form of birds as an externalized physical carriage of this specialized capacity. The bird is the part of the human that expresses this thinking movement in a specific specialized form. So then you might be asking, what do other animals and their forms express in specialized external forms? We're digging more into the secrets of what animals are and where they come from and why we coexist with them. We will explore more of this threefoldness in morphology in the next sessions. But as we wind down this session, I want to demonstrate an artistic technique for you to play with over the next week as one of the Animal Speak assignments. And this exercise will involve drawing animals and will engage your imagination or your animagination, because it is to enliven the part of you that is connected to the animal world, the animale soul realm. And this is a technique I learned while working with children as a Waldorf school teacher. It is quite different from the usual children's coloring books where the child is given an outline of an animal. It's already cookie cutter there and the child just sits and colors it in. Not much imagination to that. So instead of coming with something already prescribed, you're going to draw it from the inside out. You'll start drawing, but not necessarily with a specific animal already in mind. But the intention is to flesh out the form of an animale being that is animal-like. Some animate being that is animal-like. And it may not look like an animal we know on Earth, but that's okay. Part of this work is to move ourselves toward things that are otherworldly. So I'll give you a demonstration how this technique works, again with the share screen. And you would simply take your pencil crayon on the paper. Just start with a dot, kind of like the geometric exercise we did a few sessions back, just a dot at the center of something, and work out from the center rather than the periphery, as with those cookie cutter crayon books. You don't know where the periphery is. It's a mystery. Just allowing yourself to be animated. Movements. And then something might form. Starting to see something here. So once you start to see something, then your imagination may see a pattern. You may want to start to fill in some other things. So yeah, for example, here I've created something kind of quickly, but there's a gesture of some sort of animal here. I can see that with my imagination. Maybe you can't see it with yours, but try again, another one. All right, looks like we're getting something more bird-like here. Yeah. The theme this week is birds, so that looks a bit like a swan. The idea is not to try and do something perfect. I'm not doing a Robert Bateman painting here. We're just using both sides of the brain. Got a bit of a unicorn thing happening there, but I think I want to make this more, needs wings. I guess unicorns do have wings. It's not exactly a bird. But anyways, you get the idea on the technique to work from the inside out, quite literally with your pencil crayon, working from the center point out, and it's awakening you from the inside out. It's awakening your imagination, going from not knowing to something that magically appears. So the second part, actually, there's a part 2 to this exercise. Once you have fleshed out this thing that's got some semblance of an animal, you know, maybe you'll have some birds appearing. You know, one at a time, close your eyes, recreate what you drew in your mind's eye, see it as clearly as you can, but see even more in the inner space. You can now allow the drawer in you in the inner space to elaborate this kind of basic image of something into something even more. Bring it alive within yourself with your eyes closed and let it speak to you. The way we did in the opening journey at the beginning today, where the bird in the tree spoke to you. With these drawings that you're creating from the inside out, again, close your eyes, visualize it, elaborate it further in the inner space, and have a conversation with it. This is meant to animate your imagination so you can begin to have more of a conversation with the wider reality and not just limited to your discursive mind and the limited reality we are really conditioned to living. So have a conversation with this thing that has come through you. What do you want to say to it? Speak to it, let it speak back to you, and then when finished with that, come back and you can write down what you received. So in closing, the animal speak assignment for the week is threefold, 3 things. First of all, do what I just shared, this an imagination exercise, drawing from the inside out. The second one is to spend time contemplating birds outside or even online, pictures of birds or videos of birds, so you can feel into the quality of thinking movement that birds demonstrate. This is meant to inspire your own thinking. Not just the thoughts, but the quality of thinking, the way a bird flies and moves. So you're not so earthbound in your interactivity. You're not a penguin. You're more like a blue jay, or an eagle, or a hawk. So let yourself be inspired with bird contemplations, and then some of those may come through in the drawing from the inside out exercise. And third of all is, of course, the one for every week. That's the Rückschau, German for backward review. Take a few minutes each day to review the events of your day in reverse order. View yourself from an objective, higher perspective, going through your day backwards. What do you see? What are you shown? What do you learn about yourself? This is a way to strengthen many things, including mental picturing, memory, empathy, and self-knowledge.